All right, welcome everyone to this very exciting webinar. It's around 5:20 p.m. So this webinar is going to teach you basically all my secrets, how I've been able to make money from my knowledge. And you're going to see that it's not very difficult. And one of the major reasons why I decided to share all my secrets uh, developed in the last 20 years is that I feel that AI is going to disrupt the workplace, the economy, and many people, especially knowledge workers. So the 1 billion users on LinkedIn, they're going to be under severe stress because their knowledge is going to be encapsulated in this little thing you've heard about it. It's called AI, right? So I think that now is the time to really identify our most valuable asset, which is our knowledge, and how to make money from this hard-earned knowledge. So if you're a professional on LinkedIn, you have 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of experience, you can actually make money from your knowledge directly without needing an employer. So in this webinar, I hope to introduce to you some of the principles and the techniques that I've been using myself to make money from my knowledge. So just very briefly, who am I and what are my credentials, right? I used to be a digital marketing professor from 2017 to 2022. I worked at a very professional college in Montreal called TAV. And I was teaching, basically, I developed and I taught basically email marketing, project management, and online marketing research. And when I left the company in 2023, I was a contract teacher. I was making $80 an hour, but I abandoned this job, a very pleasant and lucrative job, because I understood after playing 2 weeks, for 2 weeks with ChatGPT, I understood that AI is going to take over. So that's like 3.5 years ago. And today I'm currently running a company developing AI powered software programs on the internet. And so, I'm really all in on AI. To me, that's what AI basically means. It means you have to be all in. Now, the question is, what are you going to be all in on? And I would argue in this webinar that you should be all in on yourself. In other words, you should invest in yourself. And more specifically, you should find a way to take the knowledge in your head. So let's represent this knowledge in the head of a person, let's say a LinkedIn user, a professional. And so you want to be all in on your knowledge, which took you a number of years to develop, and you want to make money from your knowledge. And this is what I call knowledge monetization. And not just your knowledge, but we're going to learn later on that you can find knowledge in other people's heads or on their website, etc. And you can take that knowledge and you can turn it into money as well. It's really a process. Okay, it's not something that you can do in a weekend. It's not something you can do in a week. It's a process. It's a journey. But fortunately, this journey is a lot of fun. And so I'm going to share with you everything that I've learned in the past 20 years. And remember, 20 years ago, that was what, 2001? No, 20 years ago. That's around 21 years ago, in 2005, I began to give like private workshops, and it was the beginning of my teaching career. But in the last 25 years, in the last 20 years or so, I developed so many techniques for converting knowledge into money. So the shortcut is this, and I sometimes use this shortcut, K to $. But actually, like I said, it's a journey. So in this live stream, I'm gonna take you, step by step, because that's usually the best way to learn. So at the beginning, you have knowledge, and we'll define knowledge later on. But you start with knowledge, and then this is the first level, and then you go to a second level, third level, fourth, etc. And finally, you get to a point where you're making money. So it's really a journey, and I'm going to help you step by step. For example, the first step is that you have to articulate your knowledge. You have to, write it on a piece of paper. You can use a diagram like I did a while ago. I like to use geometric diagrams like this. It's very visual, but you have to write it down. Like, what is it that you know? Because right now, whatever it is that you know, it is in a way trapped inside of your head. So you have to liberate your knowledge so that eventually you can become financially free, or FF. And so the first step is you have to verbalize, articulate, make explicit. Okay. And so here we can say that your knowledge is tacit and you want to make it explicit. You want to write out all the details. And it depends on, how explicit you want to be or capable of being. But that's the main challenge when you go from, stage 1 to stage 2. It's got to be explicit. It has to be written out. It has to be intelligible. And in a way, let me just use another diagram. In a way, it's like as if, the knowledge in your head is tacit. It's kind of like secret. It's in your head. There's no way for people to know what's in your head. AI cannot read mind yet. And so you have to export it, into some document. So now the knowledge can be on one document. It can be an outline. It's just one page listing what you actually know. And later on, I'm going to share with you a very proprietary framework that I'm teaching for the first time online called Form. But at the first stage here, you want to put your knowledge into some intelligible format. So this can be one paper, it can be, several papers, and it describes what it is that you know. So here, your knowledge is tacit, and here, your knowledge is explicit. Okay. And this is like really a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough because let me just show you in detail what is going on. So here, this is your head. Sorry for the drawing. I'm sure you look better than this. So the knowledge inside of the heads of 1 billion users on LinkedIn, it's trapped in their head. And there's this, I call it the 6.5 millimeter barrier, and I'll explain it in a minute. As you can see, like 6.5 millimeters, it's very tiny, right? It's very small. But this barrier is invisible. And if we zoom in, I don't know if I can zoom in. Yeah, if we zoom in, this is basically the thickness of your skull. So your skull is like this. This is the thickness of your skull. And this is 6.5 millimeter for men. And for women, it's 7.1. The reason why the thickness of the human skull is thicker for women is that it's supposed to protect a women's brain, which is superior to men's brain. No, I'm just kidding. I have absolutely no idea why the female skull has a greater thickness, about 0.6 millimeter. But anyways, this is the thickness of your skull, right? And your knowledge lies inside of that skull of yours. And so it doesn't really occur to most people. I don't know exactly why, but it doesn't occur to people to externalize or export their knowledge beyond their skull. So your mission impossible, should you choose to accept it, is to, number one, identify your knowledge, and number two, make your knowledge make it cross this barrier, and so that it becomes knowledge not in your head, but it becomes knowledge in the world. And this is really a breakthrough. Like, it was a breakthrough for me in 2005 when I began to give business workshops. As a quick aside, I began to give like workshops to women entrepreneurs, and I think my first workshop in a local library, I was charging only $10 per woman or per participant, and there was 3 women. So I made a whopping $30 for 2 hours of teaching. And at the time, I called it Business 101 because I wanted to teach these women entrepreneurs the basics of business. But this is something you have to accept. Now, in your case, I'm sure you're not going to charge $10. You're probably going to charge $20 or $30, especially if you can do it on Zoom. You're going to record your session. So you're going to be much smarter than the way that I did it in a local library. And so you're going to learn from my mistakes. But my point is that your first challenge, and you can do this in 5 minutes, or it can take you 6 months if you resist this idea. But the idea is very simple. The idea is that you've got to liberate your knowledge if you want to liberate yourself financially. Okay, so let me put it down here because it's so important. Assuming that you want to liberate yourself financially, you don't want to have to work for a living anymore. You want your knowledge to work for you. It's a little bit like investors who say that, they want their money to work for them. But that's fine. I'm an investor too. But your knowledge working for you is much more powerful than your money working for you. And I'll explain this later on if I have time, because knowledge is infinite. Okay. Knowledge is like the flame on a candle, right? Let's draw a candle. And whenever you buy something, money or assets, the 5 traditional asset classes: real estate, bonds, and stock, etc. The assets is more like the candle on the flame. Okay, so these are assets, and this is knowledge. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to figure out why I'm saying that knowledge is way, way, way superior to money and assets. And I'm being very loud deliberately. I want people, including my multimillionaire investor friends, but $5 million in net worth is nothing when you understand the power of knowledge, which is a flame. And I have no problem telling my investor friends, accredited investors, dude, 5 million, that's nothing. The return you're getting is nothing. You can aim for 10 millions, 20 millions, 50 millions once you understand the power of knowledge. So take a few seconds and think about why knowledge as a flame, as fire, is much more valuable than money or assets or anything that is scarce, like the wax of a candle here. Okay. All right. So here's the difference between the two. And trust me, even university educated people, even smart investors, even ultra rich people, they don't understand this. And the best way to, before I explain exactly this visual diagram, the best way is what Robert Allen, who's a very successful author, and I recommend his books. One book is called what is it? Multiple sources of income. Very successful guy. And it's worth to write down what he said. He said that I've made millions of dollars selling real estate So he started out as a broker, right? So he was basically selling. But here's what he said that I really want you to pay attention to. He said, but I've made hundreds of millions teaching people how to sell real estate. So basically you have two modes of economic activity. You have, he's actually selling an asset or real estate, and then he's teaching. And he's saying that teaching is superior to selling by a factor of 100. 100. Now let that sink in for a minute. If you can make money selling or doing whatever it is that you're doing behind a computer in your job right now, whatever it is that you're doing, I don't care, accountant, manager, architect, graphic design, whatever income you're making, what if you could make 100 times more money by doing something that is very pleasant, which is teaching? And that's what I've been doing in the last 20 years. That's why I'm financially free now. I have enough money to last for the next 20 years. I have enough cash, so I was able to the opposite, retire in January 2023. So I've made it, and I want you to make it. That's why I'm giving away this workshop for free, which normally I should charge for. But the point here is that very much like what Robert Allen said, you can make 100 times more money if you start teaching. But of course, teaching, what is teaching? Why is it that high school teachers and college teachers, but usually high school and elementary teachers, why is it that we often hear the complaint, oh, teachers are amazing, they're taking care of our kids, blah, 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 but how come they're so underpaid? It's not that they're underpaid. It's like even teachers don't understand exactly what knowledge is. That's right. Even teachers don't understand what knowledge is. And so, and that's why, by the way, they're not making money. The problem is not the educational system. It's the teacher. Teachers are teachers. They're supposed to know. But even teachers don't understand what knowledge really is. They think that knowledge is information. We're supposed to put in the heads of students information. We're going to test them. That is not knowledge. And just to elaborate on that, there's a major difference. We're going to talk a little bit about knowledge because that's the fundamental asset that you have that you can monetize, right? And typically what happens is that in the West, we have this notion of knowledge that is separate from the individual. So we have the individual here. And so we think that Wikipedia has knowledge. We think that books have knowledge. We think that even like a recipe or some kind of manual has knowledge. It's separate from a person. In the East, for example, in China, for example, they don't separate knowledge from the individual. Knowledge is inside of a person's head. So think of someone like Bruce Lee, for example. He was able to charge like $2,000 in today's terms, $2,000 an hour to teach Steve McQueen and other celebrities like for an hour of Jeet Kune Do training, because he had knowledge in his head. You cannot find the knowledge of Bruce Lee in any book. Well, of course, later on he wrote and published Jeet Kune Do, his synthetic or fusion version of martial arts. But the knowledge was inside of Bruce Lee. So in the East, we understand that. That's why you often see movies where a disciple would revere his teacher or master because, of the valuable knowledge that is imparted. But in the West, I finished an MBA, and this is not, a critique of women, men, the same. MBA graduates don't really understand what knowledge is. Sorry, I seem to have a problem with my connection. Let me just check if it's still going on. Just give me a minute. Really understand what knowledge is. So, all right, sorry, we're back. So we have to understand that knowledge is inside of your head. If you're able to perform a function and you can generate a positive result, then you have knowledge. So let's formally define what knowledge is. And I think the best knowledge comes from Peter Senge, the author of The Fifth Discipline. I've been studying knowledge, by the way, since 1998 at McGill University. But in The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge defines knowledge as the capacity for effective action. So notice that there's no mention of a diploma or certification, etc. It's really, about you have the capacity to take effective action. And I guess what he meant by effective action is that you're able to produce a desirable result, a positive result. So once you understand that it's really the capacity for taking action that produces a result, then you have a different understanding of what knowledge really is. And if you have this capacity for effective action, then obviously you're going to be able to transfer or teach other people that capacity, and that's how you make money. That's how I've made money in the last 20 years. So let me hold on. Yeah, so let me just explain what I mean exactly by that, because like I said, if you don't understand the nature and the power of knowledge, you're not going to be able to survive the AI transition, because you ignore what is most valuable about yourself. So once you have the capacity for effective action and you can produce a result, then you're going to be able to teach other people and make money. Whoops, sorry. Yeah, you're going to be able to teach other people. So you have this capacity in your head, right? And you're transferring that capacity to another person. And of course, the beauty of Zoom is that you can transfer this capacity for effective action to 100 people or 300 people in a Zoom session. But you've got to have this capacity for effective action in the first place. And of course, people are only paying for results, right? They just want you to show them how to actually do something. And if you show them that if they do exactly what you're teaching them, then they're going to produce, they're going to, generate the same result that you're generating. So when we define knowledge in that way, I'm not sure that ChatGPT can help you. ChatGPT, let's talk honestly about it. ChatGPT is providing you with answers. And this is something that's very important, because a lot of times people confuse information with knowledge. And so they say, oh, today I don't need teachers anymore because I can just prompt ChatGPT, right? And I'm going to get like all the information. But what they don't understand is that ChatGPT gives you information. It's not really knowledge. Information is, well, what you read and what you can understand. And obviously information is better than data, right? But information, it doesn't teach you exactly what to do. Now, of course, in some cases, like recently, I had a problem with my computer and ChatGPT helped me to uninstall a video editing software, probably from China. I was not able to uninstall it. So it showed me step by step how I can uninstall it, using the Windows terminal, like the PowerShell. Oh my God, it's so difficult. But it showed me step by step. So in that case, you could say that it gave me the knowledge on how to uninstall an app. And I did the steps and I was able to uninstall this weird video editing software. So it's knowledge if it gives you the steps and then you know exactly what to do to produce the result that I talked about here. Okay. And so you really, really, really have to understand the difference between real knowledge and information. And so there has to be a way, like a quick test for us to quickly identify what is knowledge so that we can focus on acquiring this very valuable asset. So sorry, let me just produce more. I'm running out of. Okay, let me just produce more slides. And we're spending some time because, as you'll see later on, once you understand what knowledge really is, it's not difficult to package that knowledge and then to sell that knowledge. Knowledge, in a way, it's like oil. You can dig into the ground and you can find oil, but it's usually in a very crude format, and you need a process to refine the oil and turn it into products, etc. Same thing with, I guess, diamond. Diamonds are always in the rough, so you need a process, but you have to find the place where the diamonds and the precious minerals and the oil and petroleum, where they are, right? And then you can process. And so we're spending some time to talk about knowledge because it's really, you have to identify knowledge. And the test, let's call it the test for knowledge. This is a very simple test that I thought about, and I think everyone can relate to this, but there's probably other tests that you can perform. So the test for knowledge is like, if you learn something from me, like my last live stream was an email marketing course, for example. If you learn something from me, right? So let's say I'm here and I teach you in person or in a classroom. I used to teach for 5 years in a college, and also before that at McGill University, and I was teaching AI at Concordia. And so if you get the knowledge from me, and this is you, okay, you get the knowledge from me from an ebook, a video course, a classroom training, a Zoom webinar. And then if you're able to turn around and you can teach other people, and they have to pay you something. So let's put a minimum of $2. And in a Zoom session, let's say you have, I don't know, you have 30 people. So like, I'm putting $2, it's ridiculous, but usually you can put $20. And so if you put $20, you're going to be making $600. But even $2, you're going to be making, $60 for a 1 hour Zoom session. If people, they read your course outline, your webinar outline, and they accept to pay you $2 to hear you out and see your screen or see your face, then you can say that you actually bought good knowledge from me. But if you invite your friends or LinkedIn connections, you say, hey, I learned from Peter, the master of copywriting, and come to my webinar. I paid Peter, let's say I'm charging you $50. I paid Peter $50 and I'm going to teach you all his secrets for only $2. And you show the course outline, you show the PowerPoint slides that I've been using to teach you copywriting or sales or anything else. And then nobody shows up. Well, if nobody shows up, then I'm sorry, but I scammed you. Using persuasion, using nice graphic design, pictures, photos, I scammed you because you're not able to resell your knowledge to other people. And this is very important to understand. And I want to put it very bluntly. If you're not able to reteach the course material, if you're not able to resell my ebook, of course, you have to ask for permission, then what you're getting from me, I'm sorry for Peter, but what you're getting from me is worth zero. And this is a very radical perspective. I understand it's very radical because if you take the typical university student, who spent 3 years, it's 4 years for engineering, it's 5 years or more for medical education. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should just interview university graduates. I'm connected to thousands of them on LinkedIn. Ask them, hey, you just spent 3 years learning. Would you be able to give a 1 hour webinar and charge only like $2 to the right people or $20, everything that you've learned? And chances are they're going to say, no, I can't do that. And I would say, well, why not? You spent 3 years and you spent like tens of thousands of dollars. What did you acquire from the teacher aside from the torture, the torture and distress? What did you pay for? Like at McGill University, I paid $17,000. What did I get? I got torture. I got stress. Like the university, this is really a scam. It's the only business in the world because, let's face it, universities are businesses. It's the only business in the world, the only business model where they're torturing you and they're charging you money. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So anyways, that could be a whole different live stream. I just hope McGill is not going to rescind my Bachelor of Commerce degree. But even if I did, I don't care. I have so much knowledge. My knowledge doesn't come from my diploma, even though it's nicely hung on the wall. It impresses women who come, but the diploma is worth nothing. The knowledge is in my head. But let's come back to the test for knowledge. Like, how do you know that what you've learned at school or from a teacher or from an online course, or you buy a washing machine from Best Buy? How do you know that you paid good money? Well, you know, because let's say you bought it for, let's say $500. It's probably more expensive these days, but you use it for a few weeks, a few months, and you don't like it anymore, and you're moving, and you want to resell it on Facebook Marketplace. You want to sell it for, let's say, $200. And so somebody would come to your house and they would check out your washing machine, and maybe you can just run the machine. You can show them it actually works. Okay, great. They pay you $200 and they take away the washing machine. But that's how you know that your washing machine is a good product. So in the same manner, I'm saying that whatever knowledge that you're acquiring from someone, you have to be able to resell it. Or in the case of knowledge, you have to be able to reteach it, which is the same as reselling it. If you're not able to reteach it, then I'm sorry, but you spend a lot of time, acquiring knowledge, but it's not really knowledge. It's just information. And that is almost like the tragedy of, the school system in the West. The tragedy is that university, colleges, they're charging you, I don't know what they're charging you for. Information, torture, stress, I don't know. But now that you understand my very rigorous definition of knowledge, and therefore most of what you have in your mind, in your brain, is not knowledge. You have a lot of information. And so let's get down to the nitty-gritty detail. Sorry, I lost my connection. Let me just check again. Oh, let's get down to the nitty-gritty detail. Okay, so let's say, and this is very serious matter, okay? Like, you have to really be honest and really examine what is in your head. So what is in your head, like including your education that you pay tens of thousands of dollars for, it's mostly information, and you have ideas, and then there's a small part that we call knowledge. Real knowledge is a very tiny part. This is the part that we want to focus on, and this is the knowledge that has to cross the 6.5 millimeter barrier that we talk about, and then it becomes, what I would refer to as intellectual capital. But you have to identify this knowledge first and forget about the information that you may have read from books, from other people, Wikipedia, YouTube. Your ideas might be valuable, especially these days with artificial intelligence. So we're going to keep that. But in this webinar, we focus on your knowledge. So how do you test the value of your knowledge? Because before, reteachability is the validity of your knowledge, like it's actual knowledge. But validity, the fact that it's knowledge, is different from value. So how do you evaluate, your knowledge? Like what exactly is the value of your knowledge? So here I'm going to introduce, for the first time in the world, I'm going to introduce my FARM framework, and you're going to see that this framework is so brilliant, and I've used it extensively in the last 21 years. And you can even use this framework to grab knowledge by other people, created by other people. You can add your own twist, your own spin, and it becomes yours. Because under copyright law, an idea, you cannot protect an idea. You can only protect the format, the artistic format of an idea. So you can take ideas from famous authors, thought leaders, and you repackage them, reformat them using artistic creativity, and it becomes yours. You have the copyright. Okay, so FARM is really, really powerful, and really we're going to spend some time, because this is where you're turning your knowledge into something significant, and you're well on your way to monetize your knowledge. Nobody out there has ever taught this framework, and so this is really a worldwide first. And in fact, this entire live stream is going to become a video course selling for $100. So you're getting it for free. So you owe me beer. So the first one is let's not start with the first one because it's a neat acronym. But the first requirement is that you have to have acquired results. And in the world of business, it could be money, but it doesn't have to be money. It's just a result that is positive. Whether you're a coach, consultant, mentor, a startup founder who was able to exit, you're a VC angel, you're a teacher, it doesn't matter. You've got to have produced positive results that your clients want, right? This is the results that people want. And right away, you see here, unfortunately, for most elementary and high school teachers, they are failing. Like even teachers, my teachers at college, Dawson College, where I studied pure and applied science, and McGill, where I studied management. I spent one semester studying journalism at Concordia. Even teachers at the university level, they are failing on that score because they're not teaching their students how to produce a result that students really want. Like students, basically, like to be honest, the result that students want is really just the 3 credits. They just want to pass the course and get 3 credits. And at McGill, if you have 30 credits, you have a bachelor's degree. So each course is, 3 credits. And that's the result. But the result is not very clear. So that's why like students today, they're cheating using ChatGPT because what's the point? They're not really interested. They don't even know what the result is. Like oftentimes high school students would ask, like, what is the point of doing math? And the joke somebody said is what has math ever done for me? Right? So like you have to, as a good teacher, you have to promise to students, okay, look, you're going to get these results if you follow my teachings. If you practice, you're going to get those results. But teachers don't know what results they want for their students. And it's very, very vague. Oh, I want my students to be able to read and analyze critically. Why? Why do I need to read and analyze critically? Like even teachers are not very good at teaching themselves. And again, this is not my moral judgment of teachers because they don't know what it is that they don't know. So everyone agrees, oh, teachers are doing a good job. I agree. They're teaching our children to become responsible. But if you want to become a serious teacher, especially in the private sector, you got to mention exactly what is the result. Like even forget about multiple results, like just one result. What is the main result that you want your students to get after they follow your course? So for example, I was teaching a center in 2015 about professional sales. And I was teaching Ukrainian students and Russian students. And, Ukrainian are, like, I love them. And by the way, I'm so glad that the robots are currently allowing Ukrainians to shift the balance of power in the war. But I was teaching sales. And I had to motivate my students, and tell them, look, pay attention to this because I know that as immigrants, you're not going to become a professional salesperson. Like you don't master English well enough. And so that's okay. You just came to Canada. But the way I motivated them in my professional sales course is, I told them, look, if you do what I show you how to do, you're going to get a job in Montreal, Canada. Are you interested in getting a job? Obviously, yes. And so I was teaching them how to sell themselves, not how to sell products, how to sell you. And one guy, forgot his name, but he could barely speak English, Yaremenko. And a few months later, he sent me an email. Oh, Peter, thank you so much. I used your technique and I got 5 job offers as an engineer. And he could barely speak English. And so I delivered on that, and probably other students too. They were able to sell their coaching services, one Russian lady. And so, I told them, look, you're gonna get a job. That's what, like 50K, 60K, and so you have to promise them a result. That's my point. The second thing is that you can't just promise them a result which they're going to love, you actually have to show them specifically the actions that you took in order to achieve that result. Sorry, it's like getting a little bit messy, so I'm just going to create a new. So first of all, the result. What is the result that you're going to teach them through your ebook, through your documentary, through your video course, through your webinar? What is the result? And secondly, now after they're excited, okay, now I'm going to show you exactly the actions step by step, very much like a recipe. Like your students don't know anything, right? They may have a vague idea of how you were able to achieve your result, but you got to show them specifically the actions. And this is where so many YouTubers are failing. Like a lot of YouTubers, they just want your eyeballs. They don't want to show you, exactly how they did it, because the actions, guess what? They're going to sell it to you through a course. So what you're getting from YouTube is not really knowledge, because they're missing the actions. And so the actions have to be like a recipe. It has to be step by step. Whoops, what did I do? Okay. So it has to, number one, you got to do this. Number two, you do this. Number three, you do this. Four, so on and so forth. Now, realistically, at the beginning, the actions that you recommend to them, that you teach them, are going to be not very granular. It's going to be like a process, not a procedure. The difference between a process and a procedure is that a process is more general. It involves, more some judgment. A procedure is very straightforward. An algorithm is even better. So when it comes to actions, maybe it's worth it to really specify the three different types, at least three different types. So we have actions here, but at a very high level, you have a process which is very general, the framework, the principles, the large phases, and then after that you have the procedures, which tends to be linear, right? Like if you have a recipe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's very linear, very straightforward. And then finally, you have an algorithm which is much more sophisticated. And it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's more like 1. And if the result you're getting is A versus B, well, if it's A, then you do C, and B, you do D. And then for C, you can have 3 different. So an algorithm is almost like a multi-dimensional procedure. And so these are the different types of actions. But the point here is that your actions that you've been following to produce consistent results. This is something I forgot to mention. The results here have to be consistent. It's not like a luck. So you're getting consistent results. They're not always the same, but the variation is low. So for example, if you've learned, let's say from ChatGPT, options trading, from ChatGPT, and you use options trading, and you're, let's say, a value investor, and you didn't know anything about options trading, and suddenly you learn covered bid calls. You learn covered bid calls, and your results, okay, your results, because that's the important thing. Your results, you've been able to generate in passive income $2,000 per month. Well, that's good. If every month you're making 2K, that's very good, because come on, it's passive income. And so you have the result. But the question I have for people who achieve that kind of passive income, which is quite impressive because the person didn't know anything about options trading. The question I have is, what exactly are the actions that you took? But even before the actions, is it consistent? If it's consistent, that's great. But what exactly are the actions that you took to produce that kind of result? If you cannot specify the actions, then you cannot teach it. Because it's too how can I put it? It's too probabilistic. It's not deterministic. And so let's take a minute to examine the difference. Nothing wrong with probabilistic. Like if you invested in so probabilistic. If you invested in Nvidia or other companies now that they are at the base of the AI stack, semiconductors, energy companies, you're probably going to make a lot of money. I invested in Bitcoin. My return is very high. Oh, sorry. All right, sorry about that. My mom just called. She's traveling, and yeah, a little bit of a challenge. Anyway, so I was saying that there's a difference between probabilistic and deterministic, and so let's take some time to talk about these two, because it really affects how you organize your knowledge monetization strategy. And you have to be honest, because these are two very different approaches, like to knowledge and even to AI. So I mentioned before that, if you're able to generate $2,000 in passive income per month because you learn options trading, using Bitcoin covered calls, that's great. But and you know what actions you took, right? Largely. But when you teach people, you tell them that they probably could make money. So you can say, they have a 50% chance up to 99, depending on their current knowledge about investing. So people who know about investing, they will understand options very quickly. And so they have maybe more than 50%. And so they should pay you. But when they pay you, they're not getting a specific result. It's not like, if I were teaching you how to create a dish, I don't know, like coq au vin or something, which is totally unrealistic because I'm really a bad cook. Okay, so, but if my sister Kim, she taught me how to make like curry chicken, right? And so what Kim did was show me the steps, and I was able to follow the steps, and I made some good chicken curry. I mean, it's not the best, but it's good. So it's deterministic. It's a recipe. But what somebody teaches you about options trading, it's probabilistic, because you might not end up making money. Actually, you might lose money. And so you have to be honest when you're teaching people. However, you might lose money, but the potential gain, which can be like $2,000 a month, which is nothing to sneeze at, the potential is appealing enough for you to take a chance. So that's the difference between, probabilistic knowledge and deterministic knowledge. Okay, so getting back to, so these are two types of knowledge. So getting back to the second pillar of our framework, farm. So your actions, you have to be able to list and describe your actions. Now, even if you teach students the specific actions, what's going to happen is that because they are students, they're going to make mistake. So the example I like, because I've been teaching calligraphy for 30 years, like, when I teach people calligraphy, let's say this is the letter A, and I teach them, okay, you gotta do it this way. No matter how good of a teacher I am, no matter how specific my actions are, they're always gonna make a mistake. Okay, so this is where you have to give them a way to correct themselves. In other words, a way to, I call it M, a way to measure their performance or their progress. So they have to measure over time, and that means monitoring. So first of all, measure, monitor, and manage their results and their process and their adjustment. So they have to manage. So that's the M. And so so far we have in my proprietary framework, we have farm. So number one, you've got to produce positive result that people want to learn from you. So it has to be a result that they cannot learn for themselves, right? And something that you've been able to achieve. It doesn't have to be extraordinary, but it has to have a delta that is different enough from what people could normally do on their own. So to give an example, let's say I'm teaching calligraphy, and somebody can go on YouTube and they can improve, up to this level, because there's a limit to what they can achieve when they're watching a YouTube video, because it's not interactive. Same thing with, I don't know, you want to teach somebody how to sell. Well, if they go to Grant Cardone and they go to other YouTubers like Brian Tracy, James Pickens, Tom Hopkins, they can learn, and therefore their skill level will go from 0 and it's going to go up, but they're going to plateau, right? They cannot go higher. And this is where you are. You teach them through a video course that is advanced or Zoom session. You teach them how to go higher. And this is the delta that you're charging for. Delta simply means difference. So they're stuck here and you want to teach them higher. So that's what I mean. The result, sorry, has to have a delta that is sufficient enough, that is different enough, that they cannot achieve on their own. If they were able to increase their sales ability, go up, then they wouldn't need you. Second, you show them the results, they're convinced. Second, you have to show them the specific actions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bada bing, bada boom, you get the result, more or less. But of course, when you show them the actions, typically it's not a straight line, unless it's something like cooking where it's very straightforward. Typically they're going to make a mistake. They're going to make mistakes, but you want to give them the ability to correct themselves. Give them the tools, the technology, the platform, the KPIs, the frameworks, etc. That's going to enable them to correct themselves, to measure, monitor, and manage their progress. So this is where the M comes from. So if I were to draw a diagram, and by the way, like, I'm a big fan of visual teaching. Like when I used to teach in a classroom, my students remember, I don't often use the PowerPoint slides. I show the slides, people read it, or they should read it before they come to class. And in class, I use like the dry erase markers extensively, because I think that when you're drawing something, especially a diagram, it's much more immersive and engaging. So let's draw a diagram that captures the farm methodology. So you have the result, and typically this is worth something. We're going to use the $sign, and you teach them the actions. But of course, the way that you do it is not going to be what they're going to implement, because they need to practice. And so you teach them the method, but they're not gonna go as a straight line towards the result. You have to predict that. What they're gonna do is that, I'm gonna try this bump, and so this arrow is what I call the M, a method. I call it non-freedom, but it's a method for measuring, monitoring, and managing the results. So they're getting this result, which is not good. So we're going to use a small r, and then you redirect them to the right place. But even here, they're heading towards this guardrail, which is another result, but it's not a good one. And then you guide them, and finally, they achieve the result that you're able to achieve. So that giant arrow, that's what I mean by management. You have to give them a way for them to detect and discern and correct their mistakes. And then, they're going to be able to get the result that you promised. And oftentimes, it's not a standalone tool that they can use on their own. You can ask them to join you in a Zoom session, and then you're the master. You go through their performance, their results, and you give them feedback in a Zoom session, or in a Facebook group or LinkedIn group where they get feedback from other people. But they must have a way to determine how good they are and what mistakes they're making. And that's why, like they say that, and you need practice. There's no way around that. But the common misunderstanding is that practice makes perfect, but it's not quite right. It's more like practice removes imperfections. So you never really achieve perfections. You're just practicing, and you remove all the imperfections, and you're getting as close as possible to the perfect result, or quote unquote perfect result, of the master who's teacher, and that's you. And so we've covered the result, we've covered the actions, and we've covered the M. Now this is the part where I'm really a master, not to be arrogant, but this is really the secret, because a lot of people teach the actions and they teach you how to measure and monitor so that you can get the results. But to be truly a master like Bruce Lee, I don't know, Elon Musk with his efficiency algorithm, Eli Goldratt with his theory of constraints, Mac Hannon, competing on value, consultative selling. You need to have the F, and the F is what I specialize in. And you have to join my course where I'm charging $200 and I'll give you the F. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to give you the F right now. Okay. So the F stands for framework. Now, there are different ways to define a framework, but guys, I've tested this before. Okay. And I was able to use that framework to create like a seminar that I sold to McGill University for nearly $10,000. I used that framework to sell like a $2,000 workshop on LinkedIn. Like there are so many LinkedIn experts, but they don't have this framework. Okay. I've created, for my email marketing course, the Plus framework. I created the systematic selling method, which I teach. Like at one point I was teaching in one evening, I was charging $2,000 for a 2-hour webinar teaching systematic selling. So that's the huge advantage when you're using a proprietary and creative framework. And my trick when it comes to a framework, which is like an acronym, but it goes more than an acronym, is to use a geometrical figure. And the reason why is that, sure, you can have an acronym like, my farm acronym. It's definitely an improvement. But instead of the farm, and this is something, by the way, I just discovered today while teaching, instead of just an acronym farm, I can actually create a diagram, right? I can create something like, the action here and the result are here. And this is kind of like the diagram. And the F, maybe it's something like that. And the F stands on top. I don't know. I just came up with that, but I have to probably create a better geometrical figure. But the point is that if you create a geometric figure, it's going to have a deeper neural impression, on your students, and therefore it's almost like a logo, if you will. Okay, this is a logo type because it has type. But a geometrical figure is more like a logo. It's more visual. So for example, when I developed the ideal career framework, I created this cross where I was teaching students, you got to start with your passion. And by the way, the ideal career, I'm reteaching it again today because I think that with AI eliminating entry-level jobs, young people are not going to be able to get a corporate job. People over 35 might lose their job because AI is taking over. So the ideal career is coming back in a timely way. So I was teaching that you gotta have passion, you gotta know what your talent is, you gotta offer a service that fulfills a real need in the world, and finally you have to have a sense of purpose. I used the religious cross, but it's okay if you're not religious. It just represents purpose. And so because of this very simple but fundamental framework across, I was able to create so many different interpretations of this framework, and therefore I created so many products, video courses, ebooks, university seminar, etc. So you need to have a geometric figure because it's multidimensional. It's not linear like an acronym. An acronym goes only in one direction, right? This is multidimensional, and so here we have passion. Here we have talent. Here we have, you have to be of service to the world. And here we have purpose. And in a similar manner, in 2006, I created a business model workout. It's a business workshop for women where I was teaching women, including MBA graduates. I created this dynamic diagram where I said that if you want to succeed in business, you got to master marketing, you got to master selling, and you got to master production. And that's it. So I'm going to give that webinar separately in the future, but it's called the BMW webinar, Business Model Workout. The idea is that you have to model your business. You have to have a model. And this is a very simple model that you can put on a napkin, but this is how, you're going to succeed in your startup business. Like even university professors in business schools, they're not able to come up with this diagram. And that's why like what they're teaching is not very new. It's not very exciting. It's not actionable. You know, and this really is, you know, this is how I made money, by just creating diagrams. Okay, so that's what I meant by framework. Your framework, ideally, it should be a geometrical figure. It's something that you are known for. And so there you have it, guys. You know, if you have achieved result or results in a field, okay, and it's positive, and if you remember, you don't have to have documented everything at the time, but if you try to remember your actions, that's good, right? So that's one, that's two. And if you're able to come up with a way to help your students to manage their performance, their process, their results. And if this is a bonus, by the way, you don't have to have a framework, but if you have a framework that is original, that is exciting, that is visual, then you definitely can make money. So I would say that these three criteria are enough to help you to teach and make money. And when you're teaching, of course, you're teaching on Zoom, ideally. And so now I'm going to mention the 5 phases that will allow you to make money from these criteria. But you have to have positive result. You have to have actions. And you have to have a way for people to measure their performance. Now, before I talk about the 5 phases of how you're going to use your knowledge to make more and more money, let me just mention the case of a former student who recently was very impressive. She was telling me she was able to make a 30% on her portfolio with a Sharp ratio of, or Sharp index, I forgot, of I think she said 5.6, which is very high. So that's an example of someone who's able to produce a result, obviously, that is positive, obviously. But the next question I have for her is, does she remember the actions that she took? It has to be actions that are rational. Like number 1, for example, study what's going on in the semiconductor industry, because that seems to be where the action is. And number 2, like, how does she select which one? How? What criteria? And number 3, blah, blah, blah. And then after that, results, actions. And after that, like, does she have a way for people to measure and monitor their progress? That's it. If she can answer, this question, actions, and a way to monitor, she can give a Zoom webinar, and a lot of people would be very interested to have her result. But you see, like, her example is like the Bitcoin options. It's not going to be deterministic. I don't think that she can guarantee people that, if you follow my actions, you're going to make 30% return with a Sharp index of 5.6. She cannot say that. That would be lying. But she can say that, hey, this is how I did it. If you do something similar, who knows? You might get 20%. By the way, I have 26.5. But anyways, you might have 20%, you might have 10%, you might even lose money. I don't know. I'm just sharing my experience with you. Are you interested? 30%, 5.6, yes or no? If the answer is yes, come to my Zoom webinar, $50, and she can have like up to 30 people or even up to 100 people. She's going to make like 1,500 in one Zoom session. She's just talking. Here's what I did. Take it or leave it. No promises. So this is an example of probabilistic, knowledge. You don't guarantee anything. It's all probabilities. But the upside is so good that people will want to learn from her, because, come on, you pay $50, you could make like tens of thousands of dollars, in the next few months. Of course, smart people would pay $50. It's probabilistic, but it's not deterministic. Like, deterministic is more like, you have a somewhat of a guarantee, or at the very least, deterministic, the risk is very low, but here the risk or the probability is unknown. So buyer beware. What is it they call caveat? So it's probabilistic, it's not deterministic. So, but even in that case, and I will pitch that idea to her, look, I'm not going to reveal her name. Let's call her Stephanie. Look, Stephanie, you've made 30%. You told me your Sharpe ratio is 5.6. I don't think she's lying. So if that is true, why don't you give a webinar and you're going to make an extra 1,500? And that's not even the end of it, because when she gives the Zoom webinar in 2 hours, which is more than enough, she has the 2-hour video recording. She can sell that video recording for, I don't know, $30, $100, and she's going to generate passive income from her knowledge. Because I guarantee you, friends, to get 30% and 5.6, you got to have a certain level of financial sophistication, right? You got to know what you're doing. And she had to do the hard work. So now that she did the hard work, and this comes back to what I said at the very beginning, once you've done the hard work and you have the knowledge, now it's time to share the knowledge. It's like as if somebody, they went up the mountain, right? And it's very hard for them to go up the mountain. As you know, you have to make a lot of effort. You got to practice, persevere. You got to learn from you. And now that you have the knowledge, it's like what I said before, where you have the candle flame. Now that you have the candle flame, why not share the flame, the light from your candle with all the other losers? No, I'm just kidding. Not the losers. With all the students here who have no idea, what the hell am I doing? So now that you have the knowledge, why not stand on the mountaintop and share your knowledge with other people? Your knowledge is like a candle flame. You don't lose anything when you share your candle flame. Because imagine that, and this is something I tell a lot of successful people, like, don't be so selfish. But even if you want to be selfish, that's fine. I'm not going to morally judge you, but I tell them, like, don't leave money on the table. Because if you have knowledge and you've been able to succeed in any field, dating, parenting, copywriting, which is my case, social dancing, which is not my case. I took a social dancing class and I kept stepping on the woman's feet. Cooking, which is not my case. Public speaking, my sister Zuni, for example, great public speaker, a coach. Whatever knowledge you've been able to achieve, it means that you have the candle flame. Now you have to imagine that there's a lot of people who have a candle and they go through life and the candle is not lit, and as a result they are living in darkness. So all these people, and you can reach them all over the world through Zoom, through the internet, and you can even reach them through their own language, right? Because Google and AI can translate like simultaneously on YouTube. The voice, not just the subtitles. And they live in darkness, and you live in the light. You have a candle flame, right? And so through Zoom, through the magic of Zoom, through the magic of live streaming on Facebook and TikTok, you can actually light their candle, and suddenly swoosh, this person has a lit candle, and she can maybe share that light with other people in her community, and swoosh, this person receives your light, and swoosh, this person receives the light. So it costs you like almost nothing, and it's what they call near zero marginal cost. And this is a technical term. It basically means that for every additional user that you're helping, your cost is zero or near zero. It costs nothing. And that's why I said before, and a lot of investors don't believe me, but it's too bad for them. I told them that, if you have knowledge, it's like you have the flame, right? Whereas traditional investors, they don't have the flame. They just have the wax. But the problem with having wax as a scarce asset is that when you sell to somebody your wax and the other people give you money, you don't have the wax anymore. The other person ends up with the wax. So it's a scarcity economy. Like even Bitcoin is a kind of wax. Bitcoin is a scarce commodity, resource, currency, asset. You sell your Bitcoin, you don't have it anymore. You sell your condominium, you don't have it anymore. You sell your car, you sell your crypto, Ethereum, you sell your stock, you sell, or you give away your money, you buy something, you sell your commodities, your futures, your options, you sell your, these are, it's what I call the traditional asset class, and this is the new one. I call it technology, information, and communication. This is the new capitalism. I would call it capitalism 2.0, but let's not go there. My point here is that if you have knowledge, it's really almost like an infinite asset, because you can make money, at a very high profit margin. You help this person, help this person. How about you? How about you, ma'am? How about you? You can sell people all over the world. There's 8 billion people. Every time they light their candle at your lit candle, they benefit, and you benefit. You get the money, and it costs you nothing. But it gets even better, because the more you share your knowledge at the beginning, your knowledge is like this, right? At the beginning, it's a small flame, but the more you share it, the more you get feedback from people, and you improve your knowledge. So the flame is getting bigger, and later on, your flame is getting really big, because your students are asking you a lot of questions. So not only are you making easy money, but your knowledge is growing. It's growing like in a spiral fashion, like this. Suddenly it grows and it becomes like really like this. So do you see how amazing knowledge is? How it's going to help you to keep growing and growing, and there's no ending. Like, there's no ending to how much money you can make once you understand this game of, creating knowledge, and then packaging your knowledge in the form of an artifact, so that your intelligence becomes intelligibility. It becomes intelligible. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 phases that I mentioned earlier. So at the beginning, you have someone who's working in a physical office, so physical space, and I'm going to focus on knowledge worker. And after that, I think so many people discovered this, including myself, during the pandemic. We discovered that we can work virtually on Zoom by remote. So that's the next level, because virtually, you can teach so many more people, and everyone is sitting at home, comfortable in their home. And that's what I did. Here I was teaching at TAB, and after that we were forced to teach on Zoom. But that's not the end of it, because Zoom is convenient, right? You just have to meet at a specific time, but you can be anywhere. The next level is you create digital products. So digital means ebook. It means video course that you can sell on teachable.com or Udemy. And nowadays, YouTube allows you to create a YouTube course. So, you can upload PDF files, you can structure your videos in the form of a course. So you can, create video courses on YouTube today. And the next level is, which we're not going to talk about in this live stream. It's too advanced, but it's software. And finally, this is my level where I'm creating AI-powered application on the web. So it's accessible by phone, tablet, computer. And what I mean by AI is that it's sending API calls to large language models like DeepSeek, which is very cheap. And, that's what I'm charging for. But you're probably not at the software, you're not at the app level, you're probably here, which is okay. We all have to go through. And so whatever you can teach in a Zoom session, and you get a video recording, you edit a little bit, and it becomes a video course. And then you can generate passive income. But here I just want to show you very quickly the path that everyone has to go through if you're financially ambitious and if you're smart. If you're not smart, if you don't have knowledge, well, at least I hope I've been able to motivate you to begin to seriously seek knowledge out there, so that you can package that knowledge and you can start to make money from your knowledge, or more specifically from your knowledge products. And so guys, that's what I want to share with you. But as a recap, just remember that, a lot of people today, they may feel scared. They may feel concerned. They may be worried. Like parents also might be worried about their kids. What should they study? What field? is gonna bring them jobs. But I think the discussion is going in the wrong direction, because as long as you focus on jobs, you're not focusing on the real money. It's like the joke where the reporter is asking a bank robber, why do you rob banks? And the bank robber says, because that's where the money is. Because that's where the money is. So you want to rob banks because what are you going to rob? So in the same manner, I think, unfortunately, I believe that if you're focusing on jobs or career, you're going in the wrong direction. You're going in this direction. If you want to make serious money, you want to go in this direction. So I don't really care how far you go with your job. You could be making 100K, you could be making, 150K. You're still going in the wrong direction, because it's not about money anymore. It's about freedom. It's about freedom. And if you want financial freedom, financial freedom, you want to go in that direction. You want to use your knowledge and you want to create digital products. And from your digital products, you generate passive income. Passive income, and then you have financial freedom. If you don't want financial freedom, and you want to work hard to enrich somebody else, well, then go in that direction. But trust me, friends, that direction is like east. You want to go north, right? And so if you're in this direction, you're unemployed. So that's like probably even worse. So that's not good. This is bad if you're unemployed. But you know what? If people lose their jobs, they don't have their jobs anymore, and suddenly they go back here and they're unemployed. Maybe that is the trigger that they need to start going in the right direction. But I don't want to judge people. Sometimes people have a job because they want to socialize. They don't want to work at home alone. They need the socialization, or they need to pay the mortgage, right? Or they don't want to take a risk with what I'm doing here with knowledge products because they have to take care of their kids. That's fine. I totally understand that. I'm just saying that for the people who currently have a job and they hate it, and they don't like it, well, I'm telling you, there is a way for you to make money from your knowledge. Now, this is a very radical diagram, so I'm going to draw something a little bit more realistic that doesn't make people panic. So here, you're working. And here you're creating knowledge products. And so what's happening more realistically is that when you're working, especially in a knowledge job, you're not just going here and this is knowledge. You still produce some kind of knowledge. So it's more like you're going in that direction. Okay. So I don't know if you remember high school physics, but this is the distance where you're working. This is vector number 1, and this is the second vector. So you're still creating some kind of knowledge here when you're working. Not a lot, but you're still creating some knowledge. And it is from this knowledge that you can create digital products and you can make money. But of course, you have to be careful not to use proprietary knowledge from your employer. Be very careful. Otherwise, they're going to sue you into the Stone Age, right? So, but you still acquire valuable knowledge like project management, copywriting, management, and you use that bit of knowledge. But of course, ideally, you should do what I do, stop working and just start teaching. And, then you go straight up. But I know it's not realistic. It's not feasible for everyone. We all have to work. But anyways, guys, this is the webinar I wanted to share with you. This is how I've made money in the last 20 years. And I'll develop more webinars because I want to teach my 21,000 connections on LinkedIn how they can make money from their knowledge. And the great news is that you can still keep your job and make money on the side by teaching and creating knowledge products. So for example, it's very conceivable for someone to keep your job, and actually that's very smart, right? You're in your cubicle and you have your job, which gives you security. But on evenings and weekends, you can create knowledge products or Zoom webinars. You can create Zoom and you can invite all your connections to join you, and you charge them just $20. And if you have like just 20 people, you're already making $400 in a Zoom session, which is pretty good. And your knowledge keeps growing. And meanwhile, you keep your job for mortgage purposes, for for taking care of your family, your kids, for socialization. I have been out of the corporate workplace for 26 years, and I'm thinking of going back because I need more post-it notes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't need to go back to the office. I don't need post-it notes anymore. But anyways, guys, thank you for being there, and please share this video, which is available on YouTube. This is probably one of the most valuable webinars I've ever given because it's based on my actual experience, and I've given you an extremely valuable framework, the FARM framework, that you can use to, where is it? Yeah, the FARM framework that you can use to really structure your journey. And it's a very complete webinar. It has, let me see. Oh my God, it has 91 pages. This can easily become an ebook. It can easily become a video course, a Zoom webinar. It can easily become a consulting framework. From this framework, from this webinar, I can create so many jobs. So anyways, I'm going to stop here. I have a sore throat, but thank you for being there, and I'll see you in the next live stream.